And I think, Ray, we're to the last slide. So I think we're ready to April slide on back over and get in the screen. And we're just excited. Can you see April now? We want to make sure everyone can see April. Yeah.
Very good.
So we'll go back to questions, Ray, if you all have any more questions.
Let's tackle a few questions that came in and leave some time for our National Watershed Coalition folks for our announcements and so forth at the end. How can consultants, Bronson and April, assist the Natural Resources Conservation Service with the Emergency Watershed program? NRCS is generally not staffed to handle a major disaster, for example. The timeframes are short. EWP is supposed to be the #1 priority. What do you think? How can consultants help?
Have you used consultants? Go ahead.
Oh yeah, we've used consultants quite a bit, even through federal so there's two ways, right? Through our federal contracts, we reach out and can hire the firms that we have on retainer in a very quick fashion. We can have a federal contractor there. We've used them to help write damage survey reports and do things like that in the past on the initial phases of the project, and then also sometimes through a sponsor-led effort. Hiring the design and construction inspection and installation of a lot of those practices as well. So yeah, we use contractors a lot in our emergency watershed program, just because of what you pointed out. You might have all this work that you planned on and be busy and set up for all of it, and then have a large disaster, and then now you've got 5 times the work that you can normally do. So that's when we're bringing in help from all angles to try to accomplish the work. And some of that's done through federal contracting. Some of it's done just by us writing agreements with the sponsor. And for EWP, it has to be after the DSR is done, then the project is funded. And so that work after the damage survey report is written and the project is funded, for the design and construction of the project would be hired out by the local sponsor if that's what NRCS and the sponsor decide to do.
Well, we're pleased to shout out to all of our engineering firms and whatnot that joined us today. We had a lot of private industry folks that joined us, so we appreciate their attendance. All right, so if a dam has already been completely developed, all right, and under one of our programs, and now it turned into an urban area, the urban sprawl came in and around the area, and you've probably had experience with this. I think a few of your slides even mentioned this. Now it's an urban area. Is it still eligible for the rehabilitation if it's impossible now to get that 50% of the watershed into a conservation plan? Or do you develop a regional conservation plan for the urban area? Or what goes on there? It's just completely now an urban area after it was done.
Yeah, so each city or county has a planning commission, and they approve development, and that development is held to generally certain runoff requirements, and so it's different than the agricultural land out in the countryside. And so if those lands fall within an urbanized city or county, an area where there is land planning happening in those developed areas, then those are considered under a conservation. They're considered to have a proper conservation plan on them because of the land planning requirements. If you build a home and there's a certain runoff value that you can have for your home or the subdivision that you're in, generally they'll develop some stormwater flood control elements into that subdivision so that there's, the soccer fields become the storage area and such in the stormwater system. And so that's why those developed areas are considered under a plan, because there are county and city planning, city planning that goes on to plan those areas that are developed. So
great. Thank you. Switching gears, who's responsible for formal engineering inspections on high hazard dams?
It's a great question. I'll take that since it's an engineering question.
I think Bronson should just take questions.
Who is responsible? The sponsor is responsible for the inspection of the dams from the regulator side. NRCS is responsible for the evaluated life of the project, and the O&M agreement that we signed with the sponsor that we'll be out there annually to help with an inspection with the sponsor. And so NRCS employees are always there at the invitation and to support the sponsor. We're there to help them and to provide good technical information so that they can operate and maintain their dam in a safe nature and help them, with the regulations that they face with the dam regulators. So, it's a sponsor responsibility, but NRCS is there to provide technical assistance if they would like us to be there to provide technical assistance to them.
Or to help out with a
Yeah.
recommendation. Good.
Yeah.
So after a watershed project is constructed, non-federal by the local sponsors, contractors, what are NRCS's requirements for acceptance of the project? The sign off by whom? Who signs off on that? It's been constructed, everything's done, and now we're getting down to that. Okay, who signs on the dotted line? Yep, we got it in. We completed it. Who does the sign off?
That's a great question. It depends on each program individually. For operations, there's a responsibility for the state NRCS to provide a completion report to us, and we also have that requirement in rehab, and also EWP has a completion report requirement. But really, that sign off from the technical side is from the engineer of record. That so if it's NRCS that's designed,
okay,
and we federally installed, then we're providing that certification at the end. If it's sponsor led project, then the engineer of record there on the sponsor side is certifying that the practice was installed according to the specifications and design that was listed, or there's a red line set of plans. We call those as-built plans.
Mm-hmm.
There's a set of as-builts developed for these watershed projects too, because it's really important to understand how that project was built, any modifications that were made during the construction phase of the project, so that we understand, like if down the road there's a sinkhole that developed, then we can understand, well, maybe that relates to what happened in construction. They dug up and they were digging the foundation and found this giant sinkhole or wet spot, and then helps us to identify possibly issues into the future. So those as-built drawings are really important, and that certification by the designer that the practice was installed to the standards and specifications is really important.
We found out on a more local project that NRCS's engineers are heavily involved, even if it's a multi-agency project. Corps of Engineers, irrigation districts, everybody kind of pitching money in toward the watershed project. And then when it got down to the design, approval, that NRCS still had a significant role in approving that, even if it was done by a department over here or an agency over there, engineers.
Yeah.
So we were a cooperating agency or something.
Yeah. And sometimes, they needed to meet and talk and make sure that they agreed which of those plans would be used and which ones would be approved. And it was kind of an interesting fact, I guess. I'll just throw out there. All right. Would this program be applicable to entities that have tide gate structures? Some tide gate structures across the United States. What about that? You had any experience with that?
I haven't had any experiences with it, but Massachusetts, I think when we toured the Cape Cod Watershed Operations Project, they were doing a lot of work with tide gates to help salt marsh enhancements, regrowth. So we've seen a lot of that kind of work done under watershed operations, even though us ourselves, we've never have done that kind of work, but we've seen it done through watershed projects. So that's the awesome thing about the watershed program, is really about anything you can dream up. Can be part of that, and it's great because it has just applicability whether you're in Saipan or Guam or Maine or Texas or whatever corner of the United States you're in, or whatever territory. You really have flexibility to do the work that needs to be done for people.
We even did mushroom farms. Right?
Mushroom farms.
Yeah.
Is that right? I'll be darned. All right. Well, let's go to the low hazard or significant hazard dams. Is there a requirement to manage, to acquire easements in that failure inundation footprint downstream of the project? So the potential risk area, probably. And I think you may have covered this, but let's repeat it one more time. Do you need to get some easements in that failure inundation zone?
So we haven't.
We haven't done it in the past. a lot of times though, with the new dams that are built, if they're lower significant hazard, depending on the situation, and each of those situations is a little unique. And so it comes down to that individual analysis piece and how those dams are installed. But just work closely with your state conservation engineer in the state or the state program manager, and they'll help you to navigate that. But for those low and significant hazard,
Yeah, I think we had a situation where we had sites in series. It may have been 3 dams, and so we were rehabilitating the lower one, I think, to high hazard, and rehabilitating the 2 upper ones to low hazard, but required right to build easements in between those 2 upstream and the lower one to keep the 2 upper ones from becoming high hazard, because you didn't want to rehabilitate them to low hazard and then they become high hazard in a month because someone built. So that's the only thing I can think of of getting easements downstream.
Okay, so let's stay with that kind of risk reward kind of thing. And what if the dam owner doesn't do repairs, or it's beyond its life and the dam fails? What can states, irrigation districts, other sponsors do? I mean, what can folks do? Where does the buck stop, I guess? On the potential failure.
The buck ultimately stops with the regulator and the sponsor, the dam owner, right?
Okay.
And that's sometimes we as technical people are giving great advice, and sometimes the entity that's responsible for that doesn't want to perform it, or they've they have constraints within their organization that prevent them from doing the right thing, and so those are hard situations, but often those fall to regulators to deal with.
Okay, thanks. We
don't want to steal Gene's time here, Ray. So we
no.
better get moving along to Gene. So.
Yeah, we'll get there. We want to make an announcement that the slide deck, and Bronson and April, thank you for making that available. We put that PDF file, if you don't mind, up onto the National Watershed Coalition site. So
wonderful.
We've got that, and we just want to thank everyone for the opportunity to provide this webinar, and we appreciate your questions that came in. Over 79 questions came in, many of which were incorporated in the presentation, as April and Bronson said, and another 30 or so came in after that. So Bronson will switch gears here and put up a couple of slides here. And we want to thank you again for your excellent presentation that you made. So let's share and get to this piece here. Hang on with me. We've got some future events. Gene, why don't you take this into the future events that we do have, and one in particular that we want to promote. So.
Yeah, sure. And I'd like to start by just thanking April and Bronson. I think you guys were very prepared. A lot of information over some tough subjects when it comes to the local sponsor, when it comes down to, at the end of the day, some responsibility shared. But fantastic, good job. We went all of our 2 hours, and Ray called out 79 questions, and they were good questions. I read them as they came in, and so folks were certainly on task. So future, we stay tuned to the webpage, Facebook page for upcoming webinars, information sharing from NRCS and other places. But really our next big planned event right now, April 29th through May 1st, Decatur, Texas, at the Decatur Conference Center. It's a very nice facility. It's our spring operation maintenance workshop. 3 days. First day, we're going to take a real deep dive into dam inspection, cover some design components, what to look for any kind of potential failure modes during your inspections. We have a really good presenter there. The second day is field visit. We are hoping to, we will have, the goal is to have updated type of equipment, drone sprayers, remote control mowers, things of this nature. The last day land rights, easements. We touched a little bit on that in Bronson in April's presentation, and there was a question about access to sites, and Dan chimed in. Actually, part of the third day, in addition to having folks come in and talk about the old easements and access and land rights and potential encroachment, we're going to have a longtime NWC member talk about a site in Decatur, Texas, where he had to start fresh with the landowner and take it through, getting back on the site all the way through a rehab project, and that would be a state rehab project, but nevertheless a rehab project. So Kevin Burns will take the lead on that at some point the third day, but he had to do just what Dan said: start fresh. Hey, this is who I am, what I need to do, and why we need to do it. So we're sort of excited about the workshop coming up. And I invite all 595 people that registered to take a look at that and maybe participate. And we'll have information coming out. There's, if you're familiar with the area, there's a hotel connected to the conference center. We'll probably have to have a backup, and Kevin is really the boots on the ground locally, and we're getting that set up, and more information will follow soon. And I see Tina's back on screen. Tina, anything to add?
I think you've covered it. I think this workshop is going to be really informative. Lots of opportunity to get your hands on the equipment and see it and hear it and smell it and ask questions of the experts. And it's going to be a great event.
So Tina, I'm gonna break in before Gene gives our closing remarks. Bronson and April have done a lot of these types of presentations, and 5 minutes from now, when you've shut the machine off and you think, oh, I wish I would have told him this. So Bronson, you go first. This is I wish I would have told him this before Gene closed it.
Oh dear. Gosh, Ray, you got me on that one. What do I wish I would have said?
Yeah.
I think what it comes down to is I'm just very thankful to have worked with such great sponsors over my career. I think they've helped me avoid some real pitfalls, and hopefully I've helped them avoid some pitfalls too. So I just love the partnerships we have working together with people across the country, and it really makes the job enjoyable. I got to spend some time in West Virginia with Gene this last year, and to see the amazing work that's going on in West Virginia. We're going to see some of it here in Oklahoma. We saw it in Massachusetts. There's great work going in across the country. California, we visited. So it's just neat to see the great watershed work going in across the country. And we appreciate all the sponsors, all the A&E firms who provide assistance. There's just some great people out there doing really good technical work on these really complex projects that are important to our country. So that's what I'd say.
Isn't it amazing? You're reminding us of, we do generational work, don't we? The work we do today is going to benefit generations to come. I mean, there's so many jobs out there that don't have the opportunity to have the blessings we have to work these jobs. April, your turn.
I was just going to say something that I'm not sure I said these exact words, but just remember that education is key. Educating our partners and our sponsors and the communities, the local communities especially, about our projects, especially the watershed dams, when we struggle with acquiring land rights, when we have to put in widen a spillway during rehab or something like that. If the sponsors were educated, the public and the landowners were educated about how important these structures are and the benefits they provide, I think we would have, a little bit less trouble, when it comes to those projects. So education is definitely, key for a lot of our projects.
Reminding us of the education component, and also throw in the human component. These particular emergency watershed situations, or situations that these programs are designed for, have a human element. And those of us that are technical in nature need to remind ourselves that there's humans involved. Humans have emotions, humans make mistakes, humans do this and that. And just to remember to take a step back and remember there's humans involved, and with that is not a perfect world. And thank goodness we have these programs to offer, and keep on sending those applications in, because that also builds the response of the need, right, into other administrations and future needs, right? We need to pack those in so that people know that we really need these programs. All right, Gene, one question before you give your closing remarks. Is there a spring workshop going to include the remote option? And I apologize if that's advancing a decision there that you maybe haven't made yet. So if you've made a decision, will it include a remote option, or will it be just right there in person like the days of old, like we used to do?
We haven't talked much about remoting in. It's been just because of the field demonstrations, obviously field driven, on site. We did talk about taping the portions that were in a conference setting, just because of the presenters that we had and making that available. So, Tina, Dan, and I will, certainly have that conversation. I think the facility has the capability. But we did not talk any more detail other than taping it and having it available.
Could be some presentations up there. Okay, and Gene, before you do this, I'm reminded that now the slides are at the website. So you don't even have to write an email now. You can go right up on the website and pull them down. So just and I thank you, Bronson and April, for allowing that. Now to Gene for some closing remarks, please.
I guess my closing remarks would be I appreciate Bronson and April's final remarks. I appreciate the relationship part of what Bronson said and communication and the education. And I hope that the coalition can fill some of that void as we move forward. This was a great webinar today about a pretty broad topics. It really probably should have been, it could have been 3 smaller webinars for sure, just because of the topics. And I appreciate April and Bronson coming prepared and answering the questions. As far as the folks that registered and participated, join the coalition. It doesn't cost much. We provide information, webinars. We're available to help navigate local sponsors if they're in a bit of a tricky spot. It's one of those things we're all stronger together. I'm sure somebody somewhere has had a problem that you're facing, and maybe we could help make some contacts. So we like to think we're old school and build our relationships in the field and get the answers that someone needs. We have a great partner with NRCS. They have a lot of the answers, and hopefully we can be that conduit. But with that, that's all I have. I would certainly yield to Tina and Dan if they want to add anything, but thanks everyone, and especially April and Bronson.
Thanks, Gene. That'll conclude our webinar today.
Bye. Say bye. Bye.